We stand today at the threshold of a great event, both in the life of the United Nations and in the life of mankind.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is one of the most critical documents for the work of all human rights organizations. And the ACLU, although founded many decades before the Universal Declaration was established, is an organization that really takes the Universal Declaration as one of our founding documents.
It's much more than a declaration. It's a breakthrough for humanity that happened in a very fearful world in 1948. And it happened in the context of a relatively new United Nations, a new Commission on Human Rights, chaired by an American woman, Eleanor Roosevelt, who worked with a number of eminent jurists and knew how to boss them into writing the Universal Declaration in straightforward language, but also having that balance between the important civil and political rights and economic, social and cultural rights.
If we think about the context of how the UDHR came to be, it was in the aftermath of World War II, where people were saying, never again do we want to see a Holocaust, never again do we want to have people targeted because of the religion they are, the color of their skin, the gender they happen to be. And so the Universal Declaration was very much a part of that moment.
Well, I remember one of her great comments at that time in 1948. Was when she addressed the UN General Assembly, who had to approve these really radical developments in terms of world order, that she said, I think today we have produced not only a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but the Magna Carta of mankind.
This Universal Declaration of Human Rights may well become the international Magna Carta of all men everywhere.
One of Eleanor Roosevelt's less celebrated roles was the fact that she worked against enforcement of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to assuage the concerns of segregationists in the South.
There's a whole racialized history to U.S. exceptionalism, and we've seen it by both Democratic and Republican administrations, and it's only recently in the past 10 years or so that domestic social justice advocates have begun to try to implement ideas that were first articulated by people like Roger Baldwin, founder of the ACLU, or W.E.B. Du Bois, or Malcolm X, or other advocates for social justice who said, let's take the domestic injustices that we face and let's bring them to an international arena. Let's have the world focus their gaze on what's happening here at home and pressure the U.S. government to match its rhetoric on human rights and democracy to the reality of what's happening on the ground.
So for the U.S., the declaration has been used as a tool in its foreign policy rather than making sure that those rights are being respected at home. And that is something that we as the ACLU and other organizations are committed to. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is, if you wish, the standard operation manual for human rights and how to respect human rights. In the context of the use of death penalty, in the context of sentencing juveniles to life without parole, the use of torture, the use of renditions, it has to be realized here in the United States, has to be enjoyed by all people.
We've been able to use the human rights framework in our work around documenting some of the human rights abuses that have happened in Mississippi for juveniles who are involved in the juvenile justice system and for displaced people after Hurricane Katrina. In documenting those human rights abuses, it's been a real empowering tool for communities to use.
It is the most articulate crystallization of the fundamental rights to which all people are entitled. And so I've worked, for example, with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers in South Florida, and they call it the Little Blue Book. And it's a book that they distribute to farm workers. And the workers realize that these are rights that I am entitled to because I'm a human being. It doesn't matter if I'm young or old. It doesn't matter what my citizenship is. It doesn't matter my level of education or where I've come from. I'm a person. And thus, these rights belong to me.
And what the International Human Rights Framework has done is given us additional tools beyond just U.S. litigation. So it's provided additional legal theories, additional legal rights, also additional fora, places to bring our claims beyond just U.S. courts.
It shows that there are international standards that are higher than the ones that we have now. It shows that we are actually out of touch with a lot of what's going on in the world, and that many of the practices that we are doing now are not sufficient, and that we've fallen behind the rest of the world in many respects.
The UDHR has been highly relevant in my work relating to September the 11th. I've represented men detained at Guantanamo Bay, men kidnapped and tortured by the United States, and to justify their detention and torture, the United States government has adopted skewed interpretations of the standards set forth in the UDHR.
60 years ago, representatives from 16 nations gathered to begin deliberations on a new international Bill of Rights. The document they produced is called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it stands as a landmark achievement in the history of human liberty. The Declaration opens by recognizing the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family as the foundation of freedom and justice and peace in the world. And as we gather for this 62nd General Assembly, the standards of the Declaration must guide our work in this world.
We've gone through a period in the United States in which we're being told that presidential power overrides the protections that we have for rights in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights. And I think this is a particularly important moment to say that you can never override rights that are attributes of humanity.
This is an important year, not only because it's the 60th anniversary of the Universal Declaration, but also we live in a transitional moment. We live in an election year, and there are many opportunities for a new administration to try to bring human rights home in a way that's true to the commitments and spirit of this country.
The 60th anniversary for young people and for other organizers, it's a really great opportunity to get the message out about human rights and how useful they can be for any type of advocacy.
When we look at what has happened in communities like ones in Mississippi and all over the nation, community people have become so empowered by this process. When we look at the present day movements and compare them to the civil rights movement and look at everything that we've accomplished using a human rights framework, I think we have a lot to celebrate.
When understanding how far we've come and yet how much further we need to go, that people still live in deprivation, that people still don't have their rights, that we still don't treat people equally based on the color of their skin or their heritage or their gender. And Americans have this deep-rooted sense about, that's wrong. I've got my rights. Everyone's got their rights. And that's what the Universal Declaration is all about. It's about bringing that patrimony to everyone in the world.
And let us, as members of the United Nations, conscious of our own shortcomings and imperfections, join our effort in good faith to live up to this high standard.